You can have the best heart, the purest intentions, and an impeccable upbringing, and still be ignored by women. It's not your kindness that's on trial, it's your perceived worth. And this is exactly where 90% of men are crushed without even realizing it. They confuse character with desire, effort with attraction, and respect with admiration. The result? An army of frustrated, invisible men, living in limbo between rejection and lukewarm acceptance, the emotional whatever that corrodes any sense of masculinity. The modern world is cruel to men who don't understand the invisible rules of perception. The value you feel you have doesn't matter. What matters is the value she perceives you to have. And the difference between these two worlds is brutal. Most men enter this game thinking that simply being decent, working hard, and treating a woman well is enough to be valued. But the truth is that female desire doesn't respond to good intentions. It responds to tension, scarcity, mystery, and positioning. This is where the invisible war begins, where the unprepared are discarded and the strategists become irresistible. You've seen it happen. The nice guy, who's always there, who responds quickly, who cares, who never sets limits, ends up being ignored, or worse, emotionally used as a safe haven, while she gives herself to another man. Less available, more enigmatic, and often less deserving. And this isn't a praise of toxicity, it's a portrait of the psychological workings of human attraction. The mind desires what it doesn't yet fully possess. Value is created in the space between supply and uncertainty. Most people don't realize that the game of attraction isn't a physical battlefield, it's a psychological theater. A woman doesn't judge your worth by the words you say, but by the energy you transmit. And that energy isn't measured in gentleness, but in impact. A man who makes an emotional impact, whether through intense presence, the confidence he exudes, or the subtle dominance of his surroundings, triggers attraction that the hardworking man will never understand. And you know what's even crueler? Women don't do this consciously. Their selective filter has been shaped by millennia of evolutionary selection, and it completely ignores rational logic. That's why the phrase, "nice guys finish last," isn't just a cliche, it's a painful observation of biology in action. If you want to be valued, desired, and respected, you need to understand that the game is deeper than it seems. You need to stop begging to be chosen, and start behaving as if you were the obvious choice. And that's not arrogance, it's assertiveness. Have you ever walked into a store and seen a product that was too good to be true, with such a low price that, instead of generating desire, it aroused suspicion? That's what happens to you. No matter how much you invest in appearance, speech, or good intentions, if the way you present yourself communicates neediness, your value plummets. That's the fatal mistake. You're selling yourself as a cheap product, available, predictable, emotionally too accessible. And in the female mind, anything delivered effortlessly is automatically devalued. Desire demands tension, interest demands scarcity, and you, even without realizing it, are being discarded as excess stock. It's not about seeming too cool, it's about the absence of magnetism. And magnetism is born from contrast, from the subtle tension between presence and absence, from the suggestion that you have more to offer than is being revealed. But what do many men do? They give themselves completely in exchange for crumbs of attention. They reveal everything on the first date, answer messages like a 24/7 customer service representative, say yes even before being prompted. The result? The mystery disappears. And with it, the value. A woman doesn't want the guy who's always there. She wants the man who's available to her, but not to the whole world. Who chooses her, but doesn't beg to be chosen. The problem is deeper than it seems. Current culture has taught men to seek validation by being agreeable, solicitous, and harmless, as if seduction were a race to see who bothers the least. But the truth is that attraction is built on discomfort, on challenge, on unpredictability that unconsciously activates the female brain. Think of the series women love most. There's always the character she can't quite read, who oscillates between intense presence and strategic distancing. This isn't an accident. This is emotional engineering. And you, trapped in the desire to be understood and accepted, eliminate any and all tension from the game. You are predictable. And predictability is the poison of desire. When a man positions himself as a cheap commodity, he adopts submissive body language, Slumped shoulders, tilted head, hesitant voice. He constantly explains himself, justifies his opinions, avoiding any friction that could threaten the connection. But here's the key. Without friction, there is no sexual energy. Freud already said that desire is born from the tension between drive and barrier. When everything is allowed, desire dies. The nice guy doesn't lose because he's good. He loses because he's easy. And this ease isn't just in the body, it's in the soul, in the way he molds himself to her tastes, how he laughs at everything she says, how he never challenges, never contradicts, never sets limits. He becomes a mirror. He reflects, but doesn't shine on his own. And the cruelest part, he believes he's doing everything right. He believes that being understanding, respectful, and present is enough. He doesn't understand that respect and desire are different currencies, and that a woman's emotional bank only accepts one of them when it comes to attraction. This is where the psychology of scarcity comes into play. According to Robert Cialdini, people value more what is rare or what can be lost. And in the dynamics of seduction, the more predictable you are, the more abundant you seem. And everything that seems abundant loses value. The man who doesn't know how to disappear, who doesn't know how to be silent, who doesn't know how to leave a woman in doubt, is sabotaging himself. Because mystery isn't a game, it's a biological trigger. It activates the brain's reward system, the same circuit activated by gambling. Will he answer me? Did he like me? Am I losing him to someone else? This suspense is the engine of desire, and you're breaking that engine with the urgency to be accepted. The truth is, the man who is worth little isn't the one who has little. It's the one who behaves as if he needs to prove his worth all the time. And this is noticeable in the details. The way you hold your phone, the time it takes you to respond, the type of emoji you use, how often you apologize for talking too much or seeming strange. Each of these micro-actions builds an emotional image in her mind, and that image says, he needs me more than I need him. At that moment, you lose the game. But it's not just with women. This behavior affects your social perception in general. The boss notices, friends feel it. The world reacts coldly to those who beg for warmth. Perceived value is a silent construction. It is born from control, from a presence that doesn't plead, from the ability to occupy a space without begging for attention. And this has nothing to do with being arrogant or distant. It has to do with knowing who you are and never negotiating that center in exchange for emotional crumbs. Many confuse this with being a jerk, but they are different things. The jerk imposes himself by force. The man of value imposes himself by selective absence. He appears when he wants, speaks when he has something to say, disappears when he needs to be remembered. He understands that his presence has a cost, and he only offers it to those who know how to value it. And this cost is not financial, it's emotional. It's the price of mystery, admiration, and curiosity. And whoever doesn't know how to charge for that becomes free. And everything that is free is treated as disposable. The philosopher Pascal already said, "Man is a reed, the weakest in nature, but he is a thinking reed." His value is not in his strength, but in the awareness of his value. And this awareness needs to be perceived before it is proclaimed. The fatal mistake of men today is to announce a value that no one has recognized. It is to try to convince, when what attracts is silent certainty. A woman doesn't fall in love with words. She falls in love with a state. An emotional state that challenges her, that instigates her, that makes her feel something she doesn't understand, but that she can't ignore. And this state doesn't arise from effort. It arises from strategy. You need to step out of the role of someone trying to prove they deserve love and into the role of someone demanding respect, even before offering any emotion. Because it's in this initial filter that the game begins. It's here that you define whether you will be a prize or a temporary filler for someone's emotional boredom. But perhaps the most brutal thing about all this is knowing that you were programmed to make mistakes. Current society, movies, music, the emotional education you received, everything conspired to transform you into someone domesticable. Because a man with perceived value is dangerous. He doesn't need to conform. He chooses, he selects, he rejects, and that threatens control. That's why they taught you to please, to always be kind, to never bother. Because men who don't bother are easy to manipulate. But now you know. The fatal mistake is clear. You behave like a clearance sale product, hoping someone will notice your hidden quality. But the world doesn't work that way. The world values what is difficult to obtain. What requires emotional effort, what it communicates silently, is that it won't be delivered by just anyone. They said that love was enough. That if you were loyal, present, dedicated, and true, love would do the rest. That she would see your effort, recognize your heart, and consequently feel desire. They lied. They lied to you with romantic songs, with movies with happy endings, with soap operas where the good guy always wins in the end. Modern culture has created an emotional farce. That affection is enough to generate attraction. But love, in isolation, doesn't have the power they promised you. Desire and affection don't spring from the same source. You can be deeply loved and totally unwanted. This is the prison where most men live, believing that their sweetness makes them valuable. But there is nothing more cruel than being loved like a brother, while another man is desired as a lover. And this other man almost always has less character, fewer good intentions, less empathy. But there is something you haven't yet learned to cultivate: seductive presence. And seductive presence is built around emotional tension, unpredictability, and dominance. Self-control, control of the environment, control of the rhythm of the interaction. While you offer too much emotional security, he offers challenge, and it is this challenge that fuels female desire. Not because she is frivolous, but because desire, by definition, needs obstacles. What is handed to her on a silver platter loses its flavor. The French playwright Denis Diderot wrote, "Boredom is born from abundance." When you give yourself without strategy, reveal yourself completely, try to connect before creating tension, you kill the possibility of fascination. She may like you, trust you, feel comfortable with you, but these are emotions of friendship. Desire demands something more primal, the breaking of logic. And here's the painful point. Desire feeds on uncertainty. When everything is too clear, too guaranteed, too predictable, the brain deactivates the arousal mechanisms. That's why good men are seen as ideal partners, but not as sexual fantasies. They transmit predictability, and predictability is the opposite of eroticism. And don't be mistaken in thinking this is a modern problem. Since the time of Ovid in ancient Rome, it has been taught that seduction requires playfulness, mystery, and strategy. In his book, The Art of Love, he states explicitly, "It is easier to tame a wild animal than to conquer a woman's desire without understanding her codes." Love in itself does not teach these codes. And here lies the problem. You are trying to activate an instinctive response using moral tools. But instinct does not respond to morality, it responds to impact. Men trapped in this illusion ask questions like, "Why did she trade me for a guy who doesn't treat her so well?" The answer is simple but painful. She felt more. Even if rationally she knew he was worse, emotionally, he caused more tension, more instability, more curiosity. The mistake was yours. You confused stability with magnetism. And while you talked about plans and commitment, he made her feel. And everything felt intensely surpasses what is thought logically. This is basic neurobiology. The limbic system, responsible for emotions, has more weight in human decisions than the rational cortex. You are trying to rationalize something that is visceral. And perhaps the biggest trap of this illusion is the feeling of injustice. You start to see yourself as a victim, to blame women, to develop a silent resentment. But the truth is that you were programmed to lose. Nobody taught you how the dynamics of attraction really work. You were taught to be obedient, respectful, and kind, and you were. But the game is different now. A woman respects that, but she doesn't desire it, not alone. She desires the man who throws her off balance, who gives her goosebumps, who knows exactly when to be silent, when to look, when to touch, and when to disappear. Believing that love is enough is like trying to navigate a ship with maps of dry land. You may be great at human relationships, but terrible at arousing desire. And that doesn't make you a bad man, it makes you naive. A woman may adore you, trust you, even want to spend time with you, but still fantasize about someone else. And that other person may not have half your qualities. But he knew how to create an emotional reality where she felt something she no longer feels with you. Exciting instability. Nietzsche in The Gay Science provokes, what is love, if not the will to possess? But for the will to possess to exist, there must be the perception that something can be lost. You never gave her that space. You are all hers even before she desired to be yours. And this imbalance is fatal, because desire is fueled by the tension of almost. You killed the game before it even started, trying to prove your worth before she felt the need to acknowledge it. And here lies the cruelest contradiction. Deep down, women want a man who knows how to position himself emotionally. But they won't teach you that, because what they say they want, a sweet, available, always present man, is different from what makes them feel. And that's not female manipulation. It's emotional biology. The same biology that makes you desire women who represent a challenge, who don't give themselves easily, who awaken in you a sense of hunting. Women also need to feel that. And when you emotionally negate yourself to please her, you take that possibility away from her. This is the most popular illusion of all, that feelings are enough. But feelings without perceived value don't generate attraction. And value is perceived in your posture, in your decisions, in your silence. Silence, incidentally, is one of the most underestimated weapons of seduction. Men who talk too much, over-explain themselves, give too many opinions, stifle the mystery. And without mystery, there is no fascination. Love without fascination is comfortable. But desire isn't born in comfort, it's born in tension. And perhaps you're wondering, so do I need to pretend to be someone I'm not? No, the problem isn't being good. It's being good without strategy. It's offering everything before being desired. It's wanting to give the world to someone who doesn't even know if they want to visit your universe. That's not generosity. It's desperation disguised as romanticism. And she feels it, even if she doesn't say it, even if she compliments you. She feels it. And when she feels it, she won't see you as a man. She'll see you as shelter. And shelter doesn't cause shivers. The man who understands this dynamic starts playing a different game. He offers excitement before offering stability. He provokes before comforting. He knows that to be truly loved, he needs to be desired first. Because love without desire is gratitude. And gratitude is what women feel for friends, brothers, colleagues, not for lovers. You are being too grateful, too predictable, too emotionally accessible. And that's making you uninteresting. In the end, the brutal truth emerges. No matter how much you love her, if she doesn't feel something for you that takes her out of her emotional stability, she won't desire you. And without desire, there is no future. Love may be the final bond, but it is desire that binds first. And if you don't learn to cultivate it, you will always be the right man at the wrong time, or worse, the right man for the wrong phases of her life. And there is no more painful emotional prison than that. You'll never be valued while you're begging for it. And it doesn't matter if you deserve it. The world, women, and even your friends only respond to one code, the code of perceived value. And value, in the male universe, isn't something you discuss. It's something you communicate without words. That's the brutal truth that separates the men who control the game from those who live begging for emotional space. You can continue being the nice guy who gives flowers, who listens for hours, who is always kind. But if your posture doesn't inspire respect, if your energy doesn't carry tension, boundaries, and intention, you'll be seen as convenient. And convenient is never memorable. Masculine value isn't begged for. It's positioned. It's what you project when you enter a room. It's what your silence says when you refuse to justify yourself. It's the tension you create when you don't respond immediately, when you disappear for a while, when you look her in the eye and don't look away. The world is saturated with men who want to prove something. And the ones who attract the most attention are the ones who don't need to prove anything. Because true value isn't in what you say, but in what you hold back from saying. It's in your reserve, your self-control, your ability to remain mysterious even while being present. The mistake men who haven't understood this make is trying to be chosen, as if love were a natural selection of good intentions. But men of value don't try to be chosen. They put themselves in a position where the woman feels she might lose them. And this perception of imminent loss is an emotional aphrodisiac. The simple fact that she may not have constant access to you is in itself a form of attraction. Because value is linked to scarcity. What is rare impacts. What is constant disappears from view. Look at the men who are remembered, from James Bond to Thomas Shelby, from Don Draper to historical figures like Napoleon or Churchill. They all share a pattern. They dominate the narrative. And what does that mean in practice? It means they choose the pace of the interaction. They don't respond impulsively. They don't react to weak stimuli. And above all, they don't get emotional before establishing their presence. It's the steady gaze that doesn't rush. It's the calculated gesture that doesn't need haste. It's the measured speech that seems to hide more than it reveals. All of this builds value, because value isn't in the content, it's in the subtext. A man who takes a stand doesn't compete. He doesn't chase after others. He doesn't try to be like other men to stand out. He builds his own pedestal. And this construction is made with emotional cement, boundaries, choices, and above all, selective absence. Nodding to a message in the heat of the moment is more powerful than 1,000 compliments. Looking intensely and remaining silent is more seductive than any rehearsed phrase. What attracts is not how much you offer. It's how much you retain. Mystery is not the opposite of truth. It's its packaging. That's why charisma is confused with beauty. A woman isn't attracted only to aesthetics. She's attracted to the man who knows how to carry himself as if he's lived 1,000 lives, who seems to have options, who doesn't show haste. And this energy is only accessible when you free yourself from the need to please. Men who try too hard to please are always on the defensive. They filter their words, calculate their steps for fear of making mistakes. But that's the mistake, playing not to lose. The true man of value plays to dominate. And mastering isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself in the face of the emotional chaos of attraction. When you enter a room and don't need to be the most talkative, the funniest, the most visible, you start to truly be noticed. Because your lack of desperation communicates something rare: silent confidence. And silent confidence is more powerful than any noisy display. It's the opposite of the man who begs for attention with likes, stories, and indirect messages. It's the antithesis of the digitally needy man. A man of value knows his life is already full, and any woman who enters needs to add to it, not fill a void. This is also revealed in how you deal with rejection. Weak men despair. Men of position withdraw. They know that value doesn't change because of a rejection. On the contrary, they become more intriguing, because nobody wants what everyone can have. The woman who rejects a man of position begins to question whether she hasn't lost something rare. The one who rejects a needy man is certain she escaped emotional dependence. Value isn't about being accepted, it's about being felt as needed. And to be needed, you need to know when to step away. Positioning yourself also involves knowing what you tolerate. A woman tests your limits, not out of malice, but instinct. She wants to know if you are reliable, if you are firm, if you are secure. And emotional security isn't about saying yes all the time. It's about knowing how to say no firmly. A man who doesn't set boundaries will be tested until he emotionally disintegrates. And once disintegrated, he loses all respect. Because value, in the female gaze, comes from your ability to remain whole while everyone around you falls apart for attention. This kind of energy doesn't arise by chance. It's trained. It demands sacrifice. It demands that you remain silent when you want to beg, that you disappear when you want to chase after her, that you speak firmly when it would be easier to give in. It is in the discomfort of your new posture that the new you is born. The man who doesn't justify himself, who doesn't rush, who doesn't mold himself, who doesn't ask permission to occupy space. And the more you train this new center, the more the people around you change the way they look at you. You start to notice that women react differently, that men respect you more, that the environment listens to you even before you speak. And that's not luck. It's positioning. You stopped begging for space and started building your own. And the space that is conquered with presence, not with words, is the only one that remains. Male presence is like gravity. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And the stronger it is, the more everything around it orbits. She didn't reject you because you were bad. She rejected you because you were too available. The exact moment you stopped everything to prove your worth, she lost interest in discovering who you were. And that's the silent cruelty of seduction. The more you try to be the ideal man, the further you move away from what truly attracts her. It's not about being good, it's about being enigmatic. And this is exactly where the emotional bankruptcy of 90% of men begins. They try to conquer female desire with logic, effort, and availability, while female desire responds to scarcity, ambiguity, and tension. What she wants isn't the certainty of your presence, it's the doubt about what you feel, the anxiety of what if, the addiction to trying to decipher a man who doesn't fully commit. What Freud brutally showed us is that we are creatures of the unconscious, driven by impulses that reject what is easy and desire what threatens to escape. The human mind is driven by lack, not by fullness. And here's the key. What you give away for free, her unconscious automatically devalues. Freud called this repression. The more something frustrates us, the more it is inscribed in the unconscious as an unresolved desire. Now imagine the effect of this on seduction. A woman doesn't desire the man who always says yes. She desires the one who frustrates her, the one who disappears, the one who doesn't respond, the one who resists. It is onto this man that she projects the desire for conquest. And it's not because he's better, it's because he's inaccessible. Attraction is a paradox. It grows in absence, not in presence. And the more you try to prove you're the right guy, the more you reveal that you have no self-worth, that you depend on her validation. And that's the kiss of death for desire.